Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you have a Republican or Republican leadership that is weak and ineffective and petrified of media. All Kevin McCarthy had to do, and he's good in many respects, but at the same time, he's like a tiny bit better than Mitch McConnell. What these Republicans want, they can't have. They want favorable media coverage, which they will never receive. Why do you think Mitt Romney doesn't open his mouth when it comes to anything other than Trump? He is never on the national stage. Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, they're never on the national stage when it comes to anything other than, oh, Trump, mean, bad, horrible. So you have McCarthy tries to rewrite history by claiming he didn't support Trump, so CNN. And there's other articles. Kevin McCarthy attempts to rewrite history, Newsweek, by claiming he didn't back President Trump. CNN, McCarthy claims he never backed Trump. Okay, Independent, Kevin McCarthy tries to distance himself from Trump. Okay, look, Democrats spent 4 years blaming Facebook ads without any direct evidence or without any evidence at all. They purchased a Steele dossier. Every single day they tried to delegitimize the office of the presidency, how President Trump was able to defeat Clinton. They said it wasn't fair. Every single day, every single second of every hour of every day, of every week and month, they complained. It was a never-ending. There was this never-ending hysteria. And Trump was capable of anything. They spent 4 years 3 years investigating Trump with the Mueller probe. They found nothing. He didn't work with Putin to buy Facebook ads. Not one person went from Clinton to Trump because of a Facebook ad or Twitter bot. The whole thing was fabricated. And nobody was indicted on working alongside Russian operatives. Now you have Eric Swalwell, who won't say if he had relations. You can look. He won't say if he had relations with a foreign operative who helped raise money for him. So Eric Swalwell won't say if he had relations with suspected foreign operative. Suspected intelligence operative had relations with U.S. mayors. New York Post, Representative Swalwell won't say if he had relations with a certain intelligence operative that he got to know very well who raised money for him. The rebuttal from Democrats is, well, he was forthcoming and he was he complied with the FBI probe, and we interviewed one agent, and that agent said that he's not even being investigated for wrongdoing. If it was a Republican, specifically if it was anyone that supported President Trump, oh my God, and he's on the House Intel Committee, okay? He's on one of the intelligence committees, and Democrats don't care. Could you imagine? They kicked out, okay, it's understandable because I'm against that absurd message board. And I was the first one. There's like one journalist writing a book on that absurd message board. I'm like, I was the first person to tell the world it was completely horrendous, could lead to no good, could lead to tragedy, and was a completely fabricated hoax and racket. That message board was the worst thing ever, and you could see my debate in 2018, long before these journalists obsessed over the nonsensical, irrational, absurd message board. But anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Tell your friends about this channel. Share this. And if you want to go to hagoodman.com, you could read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Roanoke Times, The Federalist, other publications. You can see my debates. And also, by around mid-March, I will have something on hagoodman.com that you're going to love and want to join. It's just going to be fantastic. So hit subscribe right now. Tell your friends about this channel and this segment. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the problem, okay? And President Trump fed into this. When they don't have direct evidence of Trump, of anything against Trump, they search for it. Okay? This is the formula, the calculus, the political calculus. When they don't have direct evidence against Trump, you better believe they're going to search for it. They're going to try to find direct evidence of wrongdoing, whether it exists or not, because of allegations, because of even baseless claims. The Steele dossier claims were baseless. They were based on a dossier. See, they have a different understanding or different version, different standard, double standard. When it comes to Democrats and making any allegation against Trump, it doesn't matter if it's a dossier or an intelligence report. Do you think if Trump's intelligence, Radcliffe, if he came out and said, we have a dossier on President Biden or candidate Biden, they would say, my God, you purchased it? Because Clinton and the DNC purchased the dossier. See, the problem is most apoplectic, morally superior liberal Democrats don't know any of the intricacies. They don't know any of this stuff, and when they find out, they still don't care. You're talking about a great many duplicitous, disingenuous people who will say, the pandemic, all Trump's fault. Well, we're now seeing 5 Democratic governors presiding over close to 40% of all the lives lost. And 1 out of every 5 life lost is either in New York or California. And God bless the people of New York and New Jersey and California, but New York and New Jersey have had the highest per capita rates, and they've had the worst outcomes. They had the most heavy-handed and draconian policies. Democrats reveled in, trust us, we know. All the wonderful, the smartest people in the room, you better listen to us. And they gleefully, in the most despicable manner, insulted people who lost their lives. You see, he didn't listen to us. Most of the lives lost are in Democratic-run states. People listened to you, and they still lost their lives. So now what, where you pontificated and you've judged and condemned, and you've spread all this hysteria, and still you presided over not only the worst outcomes, but the worst economies. Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the New York Times aggregate data. The most of the lives lost and the highest per capita rates are in states that have the worst economies. I'm not making that up. The top 4 highest per capita rates are Democratic-run states, and 7 of the top 11 with states with the greatest number of lives lost, which account for 40% of the lives lost in this country, are in Democratic-run states. 13 of the 14 highest unemployment rates are Democratic-run states. How on earth is that Trump's fault? But again, there should have been a national dialogue, discourse, debate, discussion. 7 minutes in or 8 minutes in, look, if President Trump or anyone around him made baseless claims, the claims or claims linked to any circumstantial evidence that they believed to be circumstantial evidence, whether it was Peter Navarro, his report, or any... What they had to do was investigate or push for investigations. They didn't have Mitt Romney or Ben Sasse or Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski or Cheney. So the Republican Party in general didn't care, didn't want to back up Trump. And then, one of the main reasons he lost the election is because Mitch McConnell, once Republicans offered no counterpoint to shutting down every single state economy, said, no, now we're going to be fiscal conservatives and not give people the stimulus checks that they want. Democrats wanted $2,000. They should have gone with a $3,000 stimulus check and called it a day. You think history would have been different if McConnell said, you know what? We can just go ahead and how about a $3,000 stimulus check? Oh, what? Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to be fiscal conservative when you've allowed Democrats and media to completely decide whether people can work or not? It was McConnell who made we had to stick by our Republican principles. The Republican Party is nothing without President Trump. So you see right now you have articles written, why did they lose? They lost because Republicans investigated a Republican president based on propaganda purchased by Democrats. It's not rocket science. And for so long, you had so many people say, the intelligence operatives have no bias. Really? You saw the bias right there. And then they say, the IG report said no bias. Who cares what the IG? The IG report would have to have an admission, like in a letter saying, we are going to take down Trump at every turn and we have bias. Like, the IG was waiting for a letter from Comey and Strzok and McCabe and Clapper and Brennan saying, we have bias, signed everyone who claims that we don't have bias. And then now you have in academia or on Twitter, implicit, explicit, subliminal bias through osmosis, every type of bias possible, but not for Peter Strzok, who said, we'll stop Trump. No bias there. Oh, I'm sorry, the IG said there could have been bias there. So, of course, these intelligence operatives didn't like Trump. It's not that they were just doing their job and, oh, Trump is so horrible. They had it in. Look, you had President Obama, who did not transfer power peacefully to an opposing, to a person in another political party, Trump. President Trump had to deal with not only the Democratic Party, but mainly his biggest adversary was the Republican Party. And Republicans are under this absurd, false, ludicrous impression that they'll get favorable media coverage if they jettison Trump. Mitt Romney will be the next tyrant, authoritarian, despot, totalitarian, monster. You think that they're just going to stop at Trump because of his Twitter account? Thank God, President Trump should never again get on Twitter. It's true, he shouldn't have insulted LeBron James. He shouldn't have insulted NFL athletes. He shouldn't have done those things. Because it overshadowed the things that he did do. Prison reform legislation. The past 5 months before people voted, there was $1 to $2 billion in property damage. 19 lives lost, according to Wikipedia. You had clashes with law enforcement, but Democrats didn't care. CNN said, fire you but peaceful. Then they say, oh my God, what did Trump unleash upon the, and yeah, that was horrendous what happened. The mayor of D.C. didn't level charges at Trump because he's protected under political speech in the First Amendment. Again, the whole thing was a mess, but you cannot rely on the duplicity, pointing out the duplicity or hypocrisy of Democrats and media. That's a losing proposition. So I guess my overall point is McCarthy should have stuck to his principles. Like McCarthy, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, and everyone, like all the 100 Republicans, everyone who stuck by Trump, who bolstered what Trump was saying, should explain why they did so throughout the next 4 years. They should create a dialogue, a discourse, debate. Now, if that is viewed as blasphemy, the reverse, if there's a dialogue and discourse, debate, and possible investigations, there's no direct evidence. I've stated this for a long time. So, if anything, in a way, I agree with Democrats on one main point. There's no direct evidence. So I agree with Democrats on that. But I disagree with a whole lot of other things. Like when there's no direct evidence but circumstantial evidence, there's investigations when Democrats are leveling accusations that are what would today be deemed baseless against Trump. There are no investigations. So the Republicans never stood by Trump. And they're petrified of, and then because of what happened in D.C., they're now petrified of saying anything because the words cause, and you could see right now with the tragedy and the horrendous tragedy that just took place. Literally law enforcement and even the despicable, horrible, evil suspect who will burn in you-know-where said, yeah, he wasn't motivated by any the issues they're saying that he's motivated by. So it's like they're going to push a viewpoint no matter what. You have to go ahead and be able to communicate your thoughts in this country. And people can't communicate their thoughts now because there's one viewpoint, and that's it. Why do you think I'm speaking as such, there's one viewpoint, and it's an apoplectic view. It's an apoplectic point of view that has no moral compass. It's just always, it's like a spinning clock. and it lands wherever is the most wherever Democrats derive the most political expediency. Believe with Kavanaugh, don't believe with Biden. No, it's not credible, but credible against every allegation's credible against Trump. No allegations credible against a Democrat. I mean, everybody that, Putin wanted you to know about Biden's son's emails. Did you know that? And Putin Putin likes Tulsi Gabbard also. And Putin wanted to infiltrate the DNC. It's like absurd. I mean, don't you pretty much realize now that Democrats just blame Russia for everything so they can get as much political cover as possible from their actual criminal and controversial stories and like when they get caught in the act of doing anything, whether it's pay-to-play schemes. How on earth do you think President Biden got $10 to $12 million? One of the emails say from his son saying, yeah, we give 10% to the big man. That was published in the New York Post. Promptly, Twitter suspends the New York Post's account. So anyway, give me your thoughts below. I will have a live stream later this evening. So be here for the live stream later this evening. Thanks so much.